Welcome back to Heroic Book Adventures. I'm Steve, and today I wanted to take a look at William Golding's 1954 classic, Lord of the Flies. Now, this one probably doesn't need a whole lot of introduction, but it's basically about a group of English schoolboys whose plane crash lands into an island out in the middle of nowhere. No adults survive the crash, so it's just a bunch of boys aged from like 6 to maybe 14 or so. So they're all really young. And at first, they're kind of excited because it's like they have this entire island to themselves with no adults to tell them what they have to do. But very quickly, the realities of survival kick in, and they've got to start making the difficult adult decisions. Now, of course, the boys don't all agree on how they should be doing things. So you start seeing these two separate factions forming, where like one side wants to do practical things like build shelter, keep up their personal hygiene, and keep a signal fire going in case a ship comes by, they can see the smoke. And then the other group just wants to spend their time hunting the wild boars on the island and playing and having fun. So very quickly, these two factions start butting heads, and as events start spiraling out of control, they end up starting to behave like wild animals. So this is a very allegorical story, kind of about how the thin veneer of civilization falls away very quickly when humans are thrown into difficult survival situations. Because even if these prim and proper English boys can quickly turn into wild savages, it means that any of us could if thrown into that same kind of situation. Now keep in mind, this was written for younger audiences, okay? So it's not as extreme as it may sound like. When I read this as a teenager, I really loved it, and ever since I've thought very, very highly of it. But reading it now at 42 years of age, I do have to point out that it just doesn't quite hit as hard as I would have liked it to. And I kind of had the same experience when I recently read H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, where I think both of those books, when they were released, probably hit really hard. The concepts and ideas were really awesome. But in the decades since then, we've all been so exposed to so much type of fiction that it's kind of changed our perception of these. Like if you've seen any modern television series, which is full of violence and backstabbing and all kinds of things, this book is going to be very timid in comparison. So I think these books are just as great today as they have ever been, but it's us that have changed. We're different. So I would say if you're a grown adult and you want to reread this or read it for the first time, for the best experience, I would just say try to temper your expectations. Don't go into this thinking that you're going to be reading a legendary piece of literature. Think of it more like you're going to read a fun children's story that has some cool ideas in it. Now, this does deserve all of the praise it's ever received. I mean, there's no doubting its influence on everything in the dystopian genre. So it's great and deserves all that praise. And if I was giving it a rating based upon its historical significance and all those sorts of things, it would receive the highest of marks. But just as far as my enjoyment now reading it as a grown adult, I would say it's about a 7 out of 10. Pretty good, but just not mind blowing. And I also wanted to point out the existence of another book called Beauty Queens. I've heard Nicole at Nicole's Bookish Nook mention it a couple times. She speaks very highly of it, and I respect her opinion. It's kind of like a retelling of Lord of the Flies, but instead of the boys, it's a group of beauty pageant girls. And it's very much a satire that talks about modern consumerist lifestyle and things like that. So I personally don't care for satire and social commentary, so it's not one I'm interested in. But I did just want to point out its existence to you heroes, just in case it's something you would find interesting. So I would say Lord of the Flies as an adult is a fun, light read, but if I were stranded on an island like these boys were, this isn't a book that I would choose to bring along with me. So I will see you spear wielding heroes on our next boar hunting adventure.